March the 13th meeting of the Urbana Free Library Board of Trustees will come to order. We have no Becky.
We have Dawn.
Dawn is going to, you're going to call the roll.
Yay.
Put you on the spot right away.
Even the ones who aren't correct. Okay. Vaughn Bennett. Anna Merritt.
Here.
Jeff Bant.
Here.
Beth Shai.
Here.
Chris Scherer.
Here.
Barbara Jones.
Here.
Jared. I can't see
Miller.
Miller.
It's only on one side.
It's only on one side
Okay.
here.
There you go. James.
No, I was turning so she
Their
couldn't
names aren't
see
on.
it.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any additions, corrections, or modifications to the agenda? I will tell you that we're going to delay the public comments because we expect to have the foundation chair here. And with that in mind, we'll go ahead to the approval of the agenda. If there's, are there any modifications anybody has, other than the one I did? Okay, a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Approve, same sign. Favor, same sign. Yes. Approve, yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Disapprove, same sign. Okay. Presentations. Let's go into the presentations. Who's starting? Liz?
Yes, Liz Woodrick. She can introduce herself, but I promised that I would introduce her as the awesomeness, intern. And she's done amazing work on the Chinook collection, and I'm so pleased that she has an opportunity to talk about her work.
Yes, so I thought I would just give you some updates on the projects that
Sure.
we've been working on these past few months.
Yes, and I should say, I'm sorry, that there is another intern that is also working with Liz, Bronwyn Shell, but she could not be here today, so.
So one thing we've been working on is trying to get a grasp on the AV material that we have in the collection. So all of these were kind of just in 23 big moving boxes, and this was Bronwyn's project. And so she got them all out and organized them and put them on the shelf. And you can't really see here, but they all have like little labels now, and they each have a number. That corresponds to a spreadsheet, which has information about all of them. And so she discovered that we have like about 100 VHSs, about 300 U-matic tapes, and then just like 3 Betamax tapes. And so Anka is going to have someone come in here pretty soon, and they're going to kind of do a more thorough assessment because we don't have the equipment to play U-matic tapes. And so they can kind of tell us what the preservation concerns are, and then also like what actually is on some of these tapes.
I was going to say, had you spent time watching them all, but I understand.
Yeah, so we can see kind of what's a priority there then. And another area that we've been focusing on is more kind of comprehensive historical reports that people were writing at Chinook. So we did have 24 boxes here of base histories. So each year the base would write a kind of a narrative summary, and it was actually required by the Air Force that they wrote this historical report. So we have all of those, and those are well organized. Boxes are labeled. There's a finding aid that's written, and we're hoping to put that finding aid into local history online any day now. So these will be accessible to the public, which is exciting, and we think they have really high research value. So hopefully this is a thing that the public will be really interested in right away. And then we also found other historical reports. So like this is a picture of some medical histories. So the hospital was also turning out historical reports just for their unit. And we found them going back to like 1920, and those were just like sanitation reports. So they're just like statistics on the diseases that were at Chinook, and births and deaths. But those are fascinating to read, and then they go up into like 1993, which are more like narrative summaries of like administration at the hospital. So that was fun to kind of see that juxtaposition. And those we've also created finding aids for, and they're processed and should be good to go. So another big project that we've been working on is trying to find out where the personal collections are within the huge Chinook collection that we have. So we obviously have like the organizational records from the base, but then we have a bunch of material that was donated to the Chinook Air Museum from like former trainees at the base. And so those donations were probably about half of our total material. and they were just accessioned and not really processed by the Air Museum. So this semester I have been going through those to see what is there. And I've discovered a few more personal collections where there's enough material that could really be its own unit here. So like, for example, this was already processed, and it was a box of letters from someone who was at the Weather Observer School in the 1950s, and he was writing home to his parents while he was there. And there were photographs and some training certificates in with that. And then we've also found quite a few photo albums too, where people were pasting their personal pictures and writing little captions. And they all have this nice cover too, so I assume they probably gave those out at SHNU. So that's been fun to find. And that's a relatively small portion of the collection. I'd say it almost fit on like 2 shelves. So compared to the like 3 rooms of material we have over there, it's very small, but it's still significant. And the other huge project that we did, were processing photographs. So when I first started, I kind of just did an initial assessment of what all we had. And then Anka and I looked at it, and we tried to create priorities of what should be processed first. And the photographs really stuck out to us as something that would have high research value and interest to patrons, and also have some preservation concerns as well. And the problem with the photographs was that they were spread all over the place. So there were photographs that had already been processed by the Air Museum. There were photographs that had been donated to the archives long before this material came. There were photographs that had been donated, just like in the accession material I talked about, people would donate like 1 photograph or 10 photographs. And then there were also all these photographs in these vertical files that we had that were just subject files and did not have a very great order to them. So we created this huge project where we kind of just pulled all these photographs together to make our own photograph collection, so it'd be a lot more accessible to patrons. And it ended up turning into this whole row here. It's about 12 boxes of photographs. They're all in folders, and they're in series, and they're organized. And there is still some work to be done on them, but Bronwyn is busy working on a finding aid so that even though they're not perfect, we can still get it accessible to patrons as we keep working on it. So that was a lot of work, but I think it was definitely worth the labor that went into it. So then I just went ahead and put some photographs on here so you could kind of see some of the stuff we found. Working with the photographs was really fun. I think especially looking through a bunch of photographs, we almost felt like we had been at SHNU by the time we were done. So we found this one. This was SHNU's first snowmobile. It was in 1918, and they actually made it from surplus parts of an engine.
Snowmobile, that looks like it's a stationary object.
I thought that was fun. Lots of pictures of their open houses. You can see a lot of like kids in the community at SHNU. So those are fun to see how like Rantoul and Champaign County were involved. Oh, we found this one. This was a dog that visited SHNU in the 1920s, and he was known to be very good at parachuting. So he would actually perform parachute jumps at the open houses from like 3,000 feet. He had his own little harness. He became the SHNU's like official mascot while he was there.
How do you know that?
This was actually, there was a little newspaper article that was attached to it.
And of course, it was in the newspaper, so it was true.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's actually, he went to a few other Air Force bases too, so there might even be a children's book written about him, I think. So
Yeah.
he was pretty popular. And then we have this neat picture.
Ooh.
So this also had a newspaper article attached to it, and apparently this was someone in 1931 attempting their graduation jump for parachute training, and unfortunately they got caught in like the tailspin of the plane, and so the pilot had to just circle around Rantoul for over an hour while they launched a rescue mission for him. And they did eventually, they took another plane and tied a knife to a sandbag and lowered it down to him, and he was able to cut himself loose, and then he used his emergency chute to get to the ground. And he was uninjured, and I think he did graduate still.
Those mornings.
Oh my God, on the spot, I would have given him a try.
So yeah, we had a lot of fun processing the photograph collection, and we found fun things like that. So And I think what's next, Bronwyn and I will both graduate this May. So these next few months, we're kind of wrapping up our projects, and then we're also thinking about the future and trying to get things ready for the next interns to come in so they can kind of hit the ground running. Yeah, I think that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Had you heard of Chanute before you became involved in this?
I had not, no, and I actually really didn't know much about the Air Force even, so,
Okay.
yeah.
That's kind of my concern is, do you have anybody that you can call on to get verification of what this is even that I'm looking at or reading?
Yes, I have done that some. I actually communicated with someone from the Air Force Historical Research Agency
Okay.
about some of the historical reports and was in contact with them a bit. So yeah, we do have some contacts for that. And I also talked with Mark Hansen quite a bit, who was the last curator, and he knew a lot about what was there before.
I'm sorry, I was thinking, do you have any information that's sort of personal that would sort of set off any triggers that you shouldn't be cataloging, publicizing, that kind of thing? I mean, said you had health records and things, yeah.
I don't think we found anything like that yet.
I think more like with actual names and,
Yeah.
like today we'd have the HIPAA
Right.
rules that would
Yeah,
allow
right,
you,
right.
but, there was no
Yeah.
HIPAA back then.
Just they were
so-
doing fire suppression, I would imagine there was all sorts of, like, accidents and people burned and whatnot. So the other question I had, and I'm sorry I don't know more about it, but the Tuskegee Airmen, what do they generally have to do with your collection? Are they in there?
They are not. So I guess before this collection came to us, was it the
Somebody took it over.
The Air Force
Yeah.
The
Museum.
Air Force
Right,
Museum
yeah.
came through and took what they wanted, and they took all the Tuskegee stuff.
Yeah.
Because at work, I was talking to somebody who'd grown up in Rantoul and mentioned that we'd acquired the collection and, and then I mentioned the Tuskegee Airmen and got this groan. It's sort of like, well, it's only now that people are talking about them because back in the day, they were living in a separate place. I just wondered if you'd bumped into any records that showed kind of,
Is the Tuskegee stuff there or not? No.
Well, and I think one thing to remember is that even though some of the pilots trained and flew at Rantoul, primarily who was trained and who lived in Rantoul is all of the support personnel.
okay.
For the
I'm just wondering if they'd shown up in
Airmen.
pictures,
Oh, there are lots of photos in the collection. I mean, there's a fair number of photos. And, the base was, initially, it was segregated. So they had to build, additional
Yeah.
mess halls for.
Well, that's what this fellow was commenting on. It's sort of like, whoa, now we're famous, but back then it was like, yeah. Okay, thanks.
So Liz, how many hours can you estimate that you've put into this?
Well, I've worked 10 hours a week for over a year now, so I guess doing the math, a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely a lot.
Will there be some benchmarks come out of this that, let's say there was a typhoid outbreak there and relate it to Champaign County then or anything? Are there that kind of things that happen?
I don't know. I don't think I've looked into that too much. I assume things like that will come up.
I mean, the histories, again, each of the histories is, hundreds of pages long. They're, a wealth of information. And what was wonderful too is that the base, when they started requiring the annual reports was in the 40s?
Yeah, the 40s.
In the 40s, but then the Air Force commissioned the base to create annual reports retroactively.
Oh, wow.
So they go back to the beginning. So it's great. I mean, so if somebody and the base had it was a microcosm, right? They had schools, they had hospitals,
They had their own
employed
newspapers?
hundreds and hundreds of people
Yeah.
over the years and trained a couple million men and women. And so.
And are you developing some categories that could be, because I could see this as a wealth of knowledge for research, and that you develop some categories that somebody could Google our library and find we have Chanute, and they want to look for malaria outbreaks, and they can study the military's handling of that, during a period of time. Is there to be some categorization so researchers will be able to use it?
Yes, we hope so. We're hoping to create more of a guide for just Chanute that can be attached to the archives website with all those links to it. But I think that's going to be a bit in the future. Hopefully not too far, but
No.
maybe the next intern.
Do you know that how many photographs you ended up with?
Thousands, hundreds. I know it's 12 boxes. So I don't know how many it is. But,
And they've all got identification of people in the back, don't they, and dates?
oh, I wish. That's the dream.
Many do, many
Do they?
Quite a few, yeah,
Oh,
actually.
okay.
Will there be an effort to take them to like Scanix or something and have them all digitally scanned?
That also sounds great.
You know, we scan hundreds of photos ourselves. I mean, we have flatbed scanners. I think, and we've already put some Flick albums out on Chanute, so, you know, we will keep scanning, you know, even in the archives. We'll probably also look into some grants to help us get that done. I mean, Scanix is more of a commercial outfit. They could probably do a decent job, but they're, you know, we'll look for other services.
Maybe somebody specializes in material that's a little more sensitive.
Well, not even that, just having that kind of a workflow
Oh, yeah.
to do hundreds and hundreds of photos.
And then, Anka, when you're scanning, are you able to put sort of tags on them?
Sure, sure.
And
We
then-
do with the ones that we have on Flickr. So,
Okay, yeah.
so for now, that's our platform. We can. There are other better platforms out there, but Flickr actually works really well because it's very accessible. People follow it, people see it, and it's crawled by Google. So if people do search it, they can find it.
Yeah, and it's an advantage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Sounds
much.
very exciting.
They've done pretty amazing work.
What are you specializing, what's she specializing in at the library school? Is she
Oh, she's going to be an archivist.
archivist?
And what does your next semester look like, Anka, from you for students?
So we will, well, the library, thanks to Celeste, you know, has budgeted for an intern for the archives and AYS. So we will be hiring an intern using those funds, but we will also be submitting a request to the foundation, who also generously supported a second intern over this past year, to see if they would be willing to contribute to that, whether it's for a full semester or you know, part of the semester, whatever help we can get, we will be very grateful. So, so we will continue to have interns working on the collection. Absolutely.
Is there a place for volunteers?
You know, at this point, probably not, mostly because of how it is set up. The Chanute collection is located in the library annex. So, you know, we couldn't have volunteers working over the annex without supervision, so it's something that we would have to coordinate, and also to identify tasks. So the tasks that we had for this last year have really been very project management and analytical, that required somebody, you know, who had training and also was able to commit the time to be there, you know, for a year plus.
I say that in light of the clock is ticking, and those men that were at Chanute, some of them settled here, and their families settled here, and there might be some of them willing to work, but they're all aging. So if you're going to use volunteers, you'd have to get to organizing. And I know it would not be an easy thing, but I think there would be people that would love to help.
Part of what, if I can interject, part of what we're doing now is seeing what we have.
Yeah.
So we can see where are the places that volunteer help would be helpful, and rewarding for the volunteers as well. So maybe at a certain point, we can say to the volunteers, we'll bring the 12 boxes over, and we have the volunteers scan the photos, for example, and make sure they came across and scanned okay. there are different things that are good volunteer tasks, but we need to know what we have in order to give meaningful experiences to them.
And you probably will need a volunteer coordinator then, too, because that would not be an easy job to coordinate volunteers.
Good point.
But I think there's, and like I say, the clock is running on that. Very good. We've moved to, well, do you want to go ahead with the budget, or you would like, Ruth?
My name is Ruth Wyman. I'm president of the Urbana Free Library Board Foundation. And so I came actually just to observe. We have our foundation meeting tomorrow. We're continuing to work on fundraising, which is our sole goal, to raise money to support the library. And my guess is that in these sort of difficult budget times that we expect Urbana to continue to go through for a few years, that our focus might be a little bit more on sort of the nuts and bolts and what the library needs to continue to run, which perhaps isn't so glamorous, heating and the ventilation and those sorts of things, before we're able to return to the other things that I think the foundation has done in the past, has done more in the past, which is some of the funner, the more enjoyable activities for the children and that sort of thing. And we're looking to step up our fundraising to more than we've done in the past, and we'll continue to try and support that. So I just wanted to come and sort of observe and be here if there were questions from the board as well.
The foundation has been provided with the past packet of foundation goals and levels of giving. And I would like to hear the board's sentiment. I would like to see the foundation given that assignment to establish those. And because I feel, again, the clock is running and we've got people that we need to be approaching for money. And I think that, to me, the foundation is the logical persons to form a committee to evaluate those goal givings. But I'd like for the board, I guess I think the board probably would want to approve those goals or those levels of giving, but I think I would like to have the foundation work on that. I'd like to hear from the board.
So do you want to concentrate on the levels of giving? Or, so Ruth, I'm appreciating, I'm hearing you say, looking at more, I'd call more your regular operating expenses versus the higher profile things that you say are more fun to do. So are you looking at establishing your daily type of items to put into the levels, or just looking at the levels themselves? So what are you aiming for? What's your target with this exercise?
Well, one of the things that I think the foundation had talked about and that Celeste has also been working on is sort of naming rights, things like that can encourage people to give at higher levels than they might otherwise give. And so I think that's one of the things perhaps you guys are going to talk about. I think Foundation wanted to get input or support from you all before we do any votes. And so the coordination, understanding you guys sort of make the rules and we try to raise the money so that that sort of thing. But to make sure that it sort of works together, and when there are opportunities like fundraising for the porch, that sort of thing, that however we can do that to to encourage the most giving and work with the ideas and sort of the governance of the library board.
And kind of to answer some of that, I talked with Fred, and Fred said that he's gone through several libraries that one of the problems was that they named levels of giving or opportunities for giving, and they were all picked off at the bottom level. Yeah. And so you've got to have a study that shows there are people who will give this, and you go after that with them, rather than letting them take, let's say, a $20,000 job. It's a $100,000 job, and he said the problem is people will pick the lower levels, and so we've got to organize it such that people would want to go for some of these major gifts. And that's, I guess I'm thinking, we're not development officers, any of us, And I think that the foundation's goal is raising money, so that's why I thought maybe they could give the first spin to this, looking at what we have in the files from last year, or from 10 years ago, and give us a start. That's kind of what I'm looking at. Celeste?
So I contacted the archives, and Donica went and took a look at back in 2000 and found when the research was done. And so it was a multi-month process from like spring through October when Fred and Joan Hood went through this process. So it was a multi-month process. And so I just got that email and forwarded to the foundation board.
I say the board's got that.
So they just got that today, so they were gonna potentially talk about that tomorrow at the meeting. And then when they've got a little bit of an idea, perhaps that can come back to you.
But I'm kind of asking from the board here whether you approve of this methodology to have them do some of the legwork. They've got that file, and most of them probably haven't studied it yet, because they did just get it today.
It just seems like the art of fundraising is not that simple. Like, let's make a list, for instance, that there are people that Chris is talking about that maybe, are looking at, giving something before they go and whatnot. Making it easy to make it part of a bequest and making it so that you don't have to figure out how to do it yourself, that kind of thing. But then there's this whole new world of people that don't think you need to do that. You just do a thing on your iPhone and people give money, and it's a different mentality altogether. And I think however you're raising money, you can't just focus on those people, Chris. You got to focus on the whole population, and that they may be totally different approaches that you need to do. And I don't know that we ourselves could put that together. You need almost like somebody that's aware of the latest in fundraising issues and whatnot.
Can you address that, Ruth?
Well, I think you're definitely right. I come more from the world of politics and campaigns, and think about when I first started my volunteer my first campaign 20 years ago.
Probably very similar dichotomy going on that.
We didn't have, email was just starting, and my dad had said, you don't need a computer at home because those are just going to go away in a couple of years. And now everything is social media and Facebook and Twitter and all these different things. So similar to the fundraising, it's not all just sending out a mailing and saying, can you get money? It's a GoFundMe account, and it's this website, and it's this Facebook, and that sort of thing. And so there's money set aside, and I think the plan to hire a professional fundraiser, but in the meantime to also go out and talk with individuals and people who have always been supporters of the library in financial ways, and say, can you dig a little bit more, and here's some special reasons, and give those extra incentives as we look towards from our sort of amateur perspective as well, what makes people like us give, and then also how do we talk with the big givers or the people who have lots of money and encourage them to part from that for the good causes that the library has too.
I'm stating the obvious, but it's a lot easier to, and I have done a fair amount of fundraising, and I don't ever want to do it again. It's awful. But anyway, when you're building something, either new or an addition, it's a lot easier because you can say to a potential giver, you can have your name on this, or this. The only thing we've got going right now is a porch and some bits of furniture. That's not very exciting, but it seems to me with the strategic plan that you're going to be starting in September, that gives you an opportunity to think about things that the library will be wanting to represent for the community of Champaign-Urbana and environs. And that might be something that you have in the back of your mind as you work through the strategic plan. The kind of fundraising that you can do right now, I think you're probably right, is somewhat limited, except if you can find somebody who's got $500,000, doesn't quite know what to do about that, maybe doesn't even have any heirs, and is 95 years old, find that person, that might be pretty good.
Right,
But
yeah.
that's ongoing.
Right, and.
We're talking about two different kinds of fundraising, really.
You're right, it is, and it's different fundraising, and it's looking at new people who we can ask. They say, you know, at least in the fundraising that I've done, givers give. And so you keep going back to the same givers who have given because they're the ones who will give. But you also start looking for other people who can do that. We did that with the fundraising. We got lists of registered voters and sent out to additional lists and got some additional donors. Not a whole bunch, but pretty valuable donors still. And a couple really good donors from that new sort of prospecting. But yeah, and I think to keep in mind the strategic plan, the 100th birthday that we can sort of help to name, and so maybe thank special donors or large donors. And then I suppose, yeah, if anyone wants a plaque on the ventilation system with their name, keep that in mind, but yeah, so far I haven't found someone.
Yeah, oh, the Anna Merritt Schiller. That just sounds so good.
But I guess what I'm asking from the board is, do we want the foundation to have a committee to begin to work on this? Because I don't necessarily feel that our board is into being able to work on some of this, and I think it needs work. And so I'm saying, if the board approves, I'd like to ask the foundation board tomorrow to go in this direction, to appoint a committee and work on it. Now, that doesn't say it's a finished product or that they come back with the answers for strategic planning, but that they are developing some of the ideas and some of the plans that need to be in place. Like I say, I think the clock is running. We've got people, and you know them, that have got money and they don't have heirs, or that they're 99 years old. And I think that unless we have some method to reach them or some goals, and I think the naming operations are one of them that I think we have to be careful with, but I think we have to begin to think about. And I don't think I see this group of people wanting to do that. And I think the foundation are the people that should be, because they've been appointed to raise money, that they should be thinking about it. And I'm just asking, do I ask the foundation to do that work?
Yeah. I would say it's fine if it's fine with the foundation, if that's your expectation.
Yeah, and certainly that support or sort of direction,
Yeah.
and you guys are more official people, and we're the supporters and raise the money for the things that you believe are important. I think we share all of those goals together, and so that sort of direction, and then reports back to you all on how that's going. But certainly, you know, what I hadn't thought of before, Anna mentioned it, was the strategic plan and trying to tie. I guess the idea is sort of from a foundation perspective, tying fundraising into everything possible. So where are there ways that we can raise more money from more people to support the library? And so your ideas and your direction certainly help that.
My feeling about this, what Chris is saying, and now your response, is any way that we can be helpful without our having to go out as individuals making the ask, I think that is the function of this board. But by the same token, function of your board is to figure out how to do it best and to make it work.
Okay.
But if we can help, let us know.
What I would like to see is a plan, is like, are you going to have 5 lead gifts, or are you going to have 2 lead gifts? I mean, instead of going out and asking right now, just have a real systematic way how you're going to do this, with goals and objectives and dates.
Do they still use the pyramid system?
And if
Except, I think it'd be nice to see, there'd just be more sharing of information, but I think as a board member, I don't think I want to order the foundation to have a plan. I think I'd like to encourage them to use their best judgment, because they are more of experts in these matters.
I mean, I've done development work too, so that's why it's hard for me not to, say, do this. And I agree. I agree with you. But
And I guess
just
I'm
have
not
one
saying-
more thing. Could I say
Yeah.
one more thing? And that is, people are going to ask about tools for instruments, for giving, and the tax laws have changed.
Yeah.
And I know you know this, but that's one of the first thing people my age are going to ask about is what's the advantage of giving real estate now versus 10 years, you know, they're going to want to know that. So at some point, I think you're going to need pamphlets or something online or
Oh, yeah.
something like
That's a
that.
good point.
So that's,
Those are the kinds of questions we'll actually be asking in the interviews with the development director that we're going to
Okay,
hire. Those are
okay,
the
yeah.
kinds of things. So the
Yeah.
library has
Good
the
point.
structure for fundraising. Here are things
Right.
that are new. How would you advise us? What are the ways you would advise us? So we'll
Yeah.
be hiring a development professional to
okay,
lead
we've
the
been
library
talking,
and the foundation.
we've been
Good point.
talking to the development director for 2 years now, and we still don't have it. And so I think that it's time that we move on it, and I don't say we're getting out of the business, but I think that they are more inclined to be help the plan. I don't have any regrets of us sharing ideas with them, but I just think that we will not, as a board, sit down with the budget, with all the operational kind of things, that we cannot spend our time planning, and we need to get going on it. And I would like to ask, I'm asking, can I ask the foundation to go this direction? Not that I'm saying we're getting out of it.
No, but, I mean, I assume they are.
Right, we are, and so what it sounds like Chris is saying is, perhaps he's saying it in a more, less formal way. Is there a motion to give direction by the board to the foundation to focus more on this with levels of giving? The levels of giving, for example, we haven't done levels of giving, those sorts
Yeah.
of things. So to make more of a plan,
Yes.
encourage, right?
Encourage.
Encourage us to
Yeah,
give
yeah,
more.
yeah, encourage, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I can't see, well, I'll just speak for myself, I think that sounds like a real reasonable thing for the board to ask. It encourages the foundation to,
Yes, yes.
yes.
Okay,
To get them,
So we can make a motion for that.
Yeah.
Can I say one more
but it
thing
could
though
be
before?
broader.
Yes.
So he's pretty passionate about this, and he said it a number of times
Yeah.
over the last couple of years.
Yes.
It's a population that we, because we all tend to be older, know that's coming to this age.
Right.
So apart from a grand plan to get yuppies and everybody else involved, perhaps we could encourage the foundation to think, at least temporarily, specifically about people that are coming to that time. So maybe, sure, develop levels of giving, but we don't want to spend a lot of time developing a plan because we don't have a development officer. But maybe also develop a plan, but also try to focus on people that are looking to donate property, or they want to get in their will and things like that, that maybe that's more the focus temporarily that the foundation should take, so we don't miss something. Chris?
I have a question, I'm sorry. I have a question about the development director. What is the timeline for that?
I hope to have the job description to the city by the end of the week. Like this is
And then what happens
What was the
after
date?
that?
by the end of the week.
End of the week.
End
When?
of the week. So we're moving. There are many moving parts with all the employment things that have changed.
I know.
And so the city is kind enough to look at our application, our job descriptions.
Then what? How many months, weeks? Do you have any idea?
So it's generally a 3-month process.
Okay.
In a general, with a
Thanks.
full-time employee, you post it for a position like this for a month, maybe 6 weeks.
Okay.
You've got 2 rounds of interviews, and then you make an offer, and then the person has to give notice, so in
Yeah.
that 3 to 4 month range.
Okay, thanks.
Do we still have the money that was set aside for that position?
We do, and that's part of the budget
Okay.
discussion.
Okay.
Great.
All of you know that the city gave us,
Right.
A
Yes,
sum.
I remember that. That was.
yeah,
that was good.
that's been a year ago too.
Yeah, yes. Perhaps given this discussion, what would be useful for us as well as the foundation would be if we were to give the foundation the directive to come up with a plan, and if it includes levels of giving, or, you get in the education field, we give apples and variations on that theme. You could give variations on the theme of books and sets of encyclopedia as your image, or whatever you want. But it could include that, but it could include other kinds of things, and discussions with estate planners and the ones that you want to talk to It could be that detailed or it could be general, but to come back to this board with a plan to raise,
Okay.
put in a number. How are you going to do that? And then when the development officer comes, you've got a start already for that person to work on.
And I don't think it's set in concrete. We're not
No,
saying
no.
any of this
It's
is
just
concrete.
something that-
It's something to work for.
Yeah, and these ideas are good about looking at, and the tax laws and sort of focusing on certain individuals who are at certain stations in life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll take that back to the foundation with those ideas and certainly any others.
Do you
that-
want a motion that our board would, or do you just want, I think I could legally ask them to work on it because I'm a member of that board.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think
go from
given
there.
this discussion, unless it would be useful for you to take back a motion, we have to do this because the board's telling us to do it. I can't imagine that that's necessary.
I
And
think
maybe
that
it is.
It's correct that it's not necessary, and certainly direction and encouragement from the board, which Chris and I and Les can all report tomorrow, is I think sufficient, and knowing that's your all perspective as well is really important and good to hear too.
We certainly hope for the best from all
Oh,
of you.
absolutely.
Yes.
Is that
Absolutely.
put positively enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, because I've been stewing about this and I think we've got to move.
Justifiably, because
Yeah, and
Yeah.
work some things out, and it
Hard
won't be
times.
concrete, and it won't ever be concrete. It's got to be a plan that is malleable. And with a new director, we hope that that person brings some talent to it too. But I just did not see this board sitting down and working out the details.
Oh, no.
No.
Okay, that's
No.
where I was at, okay. Okay, what's we got next? We have no call for executive session. We've had public, we've got the budget now.
We've got
Are you
the-
finished, Ruth?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming. Budget.
I have just a couple of slides. You have received a copy of the budget, which is not in the new Munis format, in part because we have a number of sections that when they translated from the old system, AS400, into the Munis system, especially in the gift and trust funds, we didn't give the city the right information. So for example, there are a number of gift funds that translated over as children's, so this shouldn't be children's. So what we've done is we've gone through, I'm almost finished going through the list to see what did we give wrong information for, so they can just go back in and make the switches for us. So within the next 3 weeks, because I'll be out of a chunk of next week, I will be able to submit this budget to you that you have in the new format with the new breakdowns, so that it looks the way you will expect to see it. But for now, we've got the old-fashioned look, so to speak.
And our time frame for the city council is review that for us.
So, this month, you, the board, look at this and have whatever discussions you want to. Next month, you need to approve some type of budget. And then the very next day, I actually meet with the mayor and the chief finance officer, Elizabeth Hannon, to talk about the budget that you have approved within the context of the city budget as a whole. We've talked about the city looking to either raise funds or decrease revenue by a net $500,000 this year, $750,000 next year. The library is part of the city's general fund, and that's where the property taxes go. The property tax levy funds those things. So police pension, fire pension, library, and city's general fund. So we are looking at an overall flat budget, except we have increased our request for the levy for raises and step increases for staff, as well as an increase for health insurance because we can anticipate a health insurance increase. Otherwise, we are either pulling from fund balance from funds that we have set aside, or pulling from fund balance for gifts that we have received in order to move ahead with some one-time expenses, which in the 3-page budget document I laid out why we were asking for things from our fund balance for particular projects.
The 750 is based on our current budget for 2 years out.
The 750 is the city's goal to take 750 out of their budget after taking 500 out this year.
But not another 750 after 500. It'd be another 250.
No.
The original 50, you're saying
Additional
the 750 from the current budget,
So
2 years out.
The fiscal 19, the city's removing 500,000 from their budget. In fiscal 20, an additional 750.
So that's 225.
12750.
100.
Right.
So the city is looking to,
One and a quarter.
1.25.
so it is a significant, the city is being very responsible about the assets that they have and the debts that they have and the decrease in sales tax.
Yeah.
And looking at some things from the state that are being taxed. There's some pass-through money that the state passes through, but that's now being, there's a service charge, a 2% service charge that cities weren't paying in the past, but now they're paying. So even if the funds coming through increase, you have a service charge on top of that you didn't have before. So
So if the city budget as a whole is X, what percentage of that would our budget represent? I know it's not the story, but like, do you know what I mean, if the city budget's $1
10%
million,
maybe?
are we
well, the city's budget's like 50 million,
50 million?
correct?
And our
It's in
budget
that-
total is,
400 some thousand.
so,
Sorry,
okay.
4 million
4
something.
million.
So if you were approaching it on just, we gotta
So
get
8%,
500,000 and our
10%.
portion of it, we're not looking at us coming up with $150,000. It's not, it's gonna be significantly lower than that based on that kind of analysis. Yeah.
So the city did not direct me to cut a certain percentage out of our budget.
Right.
So that is a good place to start for the library because we're part of the property tax. But we were directed to have a flat, to come in flat, except for these couple of areas.
Okay.
So that is what we've done. It could be that after all the budgets are put together from all the different departments and the library's included in that and they look at the different things, it could be that multiple departments have to also make additional cuts. We won't know that
Right, that's
until
what the
everything
U of
comes in.
I
And so that's the,
does too often, and then it's up to you to figure out how to
Yeah.
Yeah.
survive.
Yeah.
I just wondered how the ratio was. in
But so
terms of-
far, they haven't asked for
Right.
a cut.
that is correct.
Okay.
So we are
That doesn't
hopeful.
mean they won't, but they haven't so far.
That is correct. So to start flat with the allowances for the 1% increase to the base of the pay scale, and then to allow people, they have longevity over there, we have step increases, so similar. So that is where you see some increases in our budget. And so I have a separate spreadsheet to show here are the places we are allowed to, at least at this point, raise and ask for more in the property tax. Now, you know that if the equalized assessed value of the property tax goes up, if the property goes up, it's possible that the city won't need to levy a higher amount and we can keep our levy down because we're trying to match the Champaign city levy.
Yeah.
Most of the levy that people are paying, though, is not from the city or the library, it's from the schools and the parks. And we can't control what the schools and parks levy. So the city, again, is being very responsive and very responsible, and we are doing our part in that as well. So what we have provided you, very much a team effort, hours and hours and hours of work from the different department heads and their colleagues, hours of work, is to pull this all together and try to look ahead and be responsible. For example, the project to convert the DVDs behind the counter so that you can self-check them and they can be out on the floor for people to take out themselves. There will be an initial upfront investment, but it will save time and money and provide better access to patrons later. And we've got a good chunk of that money already set aside that could pay for that. We know that will be a good thing in the long run for the library. And some staff have really been begging us to do that because it will make things better for the patrons. So ultimately, you will decide what budget we bring to the city council. We know that we will have some changes between this right now. I anticipate, I should say, having changes. In this budget that you received, we could not say that the foundation voted $100,000 for the porch because they meet tomorrow. I will ask in my request that they will get tomorrow that they pledge the $100,000 for the porch. If they only pledge 80 and the porch costs 100, someone has to pay the 20,000 difference. So that will be something that we have to consider. The Friends have pledged at their last meeting that the $26,500 for new furniture. as well as whatever the proceeds are from this April book sale, which range in that, let's say, $500 for the book sales. So we were estimating $32,000 as a safe estimate. But we'll know by the time the next board meeting how much profit they brought in. So we'll have a couple of stronger dollar amounts, which should show less money coming out of the library's fund balance than it does now. Another thing that is in this is the whole 11-year accrual. So right now, the library pays,
10.
There's 26 pay periods, but every 11 years, there's 27. There's a way to get around that, which is you kind of back post. So you're paying, every year you pay 365 days. The library doesn't do that, though. It does is save the money, and then in the 11th year, pay this bigger amount. But you're saving so much money every year, but you're losing money because you're saving money and you're giving people raises for 11 years. So if you had just paid the 365 days in a year at the beginning, you're not losing any money. So we recommend taking the money that we've saved with the new system, paying it at the end of the fiscal 1920 juncture, and then being done with that whole system, and we'll be right on target. But again, we've been saving $5,000 to $8,000 a year for that. We're going to need a little bit extra to make sure we're on target, because again, the money that we saved at the beginning is worth less now. But it will put us in a good financial position, and we've saved $86,000. So there are a couple things that will put us in a better position than we are now and move us ahead. But we have to figure out from the city's got to look and see IMRF and FICA. We budgeted as if the city is going to pay extra for that, but it may be that they don't have to because of the way it posts, blah, blah, blah. So they're looking into that piece. So part of our revenue and expenses might go down if the city doesn't actually have to move that funding into the last fiscal year. So there will be some changes, which I will clearly delineate. Why has this number gone down or up? So hopefully it will be numbers going up to our advantage, or down to our advantage.
Does somebody know about what's happening with Carl? I know you mentioned it briefly in here. Do we
Nothing
know
has
what?
happened. There's no resolution. There will be no resolution this fiscal year, I would anticipate.
Okay,
No one has said we should anticipate a resolution this fiscal year. How's
okay,
that?
thank you.
Yeah.
I know you've got a commitment from the Friends.
Uh-huh.
I've walked around since you and I talked, and I see some furniture that definitely needs to be replaced, and I see some furniture that I don't think has to be. So I guess I'm hoping that we seriously look at that and evaluate that in some fashion, and we maybe don't have to use all 32,000 or whatever planned for.
Yeah,
Okay.
what I want to do is put in the maximum amounts we think is realistic, and what the Friends have said is this is how much we'll give you. We do not have to spend all that money, and in part, we don't know, I mean, chairs can cost $500 a piece.
Yeah.
There are 16 chairs that match, that are of the same 2005 purchase. So if you were to look at that, that's 8,000, that's not 26,000, that's not 32,000. But what we want to do is have the flexibility in the budget to do that.
I'd
And
like for
hire
some-
a consultant to help us
Yeah.
pick furniture that will last, will look attractive, and will be good for the use that we get.
I'd-
The computer lab chairs that are like this but cushy, that are in the children's department, kids pee on them all the time. They pee on them, and then we have to pay so many dollars per chair to have them professionally cleaned. So perhaps, if we didn't spend all the money on the chairs up front, we could spend some money on some of the other chairs to get nice replacements that will handle the use in a different way.
I would say,
Hospital chairs, that's what some libraries do.
We are looking at that as an option. Yep.
when you say hospital chairs, is that,
It's so the
They're
pee.
hospital grade.
Yeah, and you,
Are they-
they're
are
strong and you
vinyl?
can wipe the pee. Yeah, well, they look like.
because I
leather, but
think
they're
that these
vinyl.
chairs are not what people want to sit in the reading and lounging areas.
I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
so that's why we would hire a consultant to help
Yeah.
us. What are the price points? What are the number of chairs? What are the things that we see happening on a daily basis in the library? What is the use we want to have? And then help us narrow down our
I'm
options.
sorry, it's not funny, but.
And I would like for the board to walk around the library and look at these chairs. Those that are in plain colors show the worst wear. Those that are a pattern on the chairs, they really are better off.
And
Now,
some-
maybe it's just hiding stuff, but it's,
I was gonna say, but never mind.
Some of the patterns have held up better than others too. Some of
yeah,
them-
there's some chairs, the back's coming off.
Yep.
So take a look at them.
All right.
When she and I talked about it, I then walked around the building and looked, and I see what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You need to really know. Okay. Anything else on the
I
budget?
just want to show you.
Did
a
you have
couple-
slides?
I do, I just have a couple of slides right here. Keeping it simple, but once I get the other numbers, so there's one. This is just a reminder of, oops,
Am I being too
There we go.
gloomy?
just the reminder of how much of our budget is property taxes.
Everybody can see that,
Whoa.
right?
So that is pretty clear. So local property taxes.
Yeah.
So when the legislators start talking again about capping property taxes,
Yes.
it is mission critical for us that you reach out to your legislators and say, this will potentially harm the library. And there are many different plans that have been put out there, so it will depend on the plan. Some of them may harm us, some of them may not, but they're not gonna help the city, that is for darn sure. And things that hurt the city are not gonna help the library. So this is important to see. We value all the bits and pieces, but this is the most critical one. They all add up. And then, oh, made it too low on the page, sorry about that, Chris. It is our goal with the state standards to keep our materials budget up towards 12%. We kept the materials budget flat, we didn't add to it. But we're gonna be spending more on one-time expenses, so to be clear, we're looking at regular recurring costs is what you measure that against. Also, this total budget doesn't include the Friends contribution. And they raise about $15,000, $17,000 a year, $17,000 to $20,000 a year, and we do plan to spend that money. So with this budget that you'll get in Munis, it will have all of the different, the L10 funds, all the grant funds showing people donate so much a year on average. And so we do plan to spend that money because when people give you money to spend, they want you to spend it. So you will see our total budget go up, and in part, the materials budget is going to go up too, because the Friends money will go in there if nothing else. So new numbers are coming, so just a couple things, we're close.
And for those that are fairly new, that 11% there is one of our continuing suggestions. It's ILA or something is lowering that figure right now. Are you aware of that?
I was not.
I'm on the state standards
Yeah,
committee, and one of
okay.
the standards is a 12% spent on materials, but that is a discussion that many libraries have reached out to say,
Yeah, I
this
mean,
is not
Sustainable.
sustainable. And
Yeah.
also, as people more and more are looking for experiences at the library, they want to go to programs,
Right.
and they want to have the library do outreach to them.
Right.
You need to spend money on staff in order to make that happen.
Right.
So it is possible that as we work through this standards process, that maybe 11% is, or 12% isn't the standard that the state is setting anymore. It is possible that that number will change. It is certainly being discussed, I can tell you that.
Yeah, that sounds sensible. Also, there's more electronic now, and that would also change things. I don't know which
Costs
way it
more.
would change it. Does electronic cost more?
I think so.
Okay. Well,
So but it depends, sometimes they don't. So some things that are costing less, music CDs now, Joel was saying, are actually costing, he's saying half of what they used to cost.
Okay,
So
yeah.
we don't need as much money in the CD budget to
Yeah.
get the same number of CDs.
CDs, yeah.
So we can give the same amount of collection to people who want that physical item, but we don't need as much money. And staff here are very conscious of spending responsibly. They don't want to buy 5 copies of something if we really need 3,
Yeah.
which is great to work with people who are so responsible and in touch with what our patrons want.
How do you count ebooks?
We have statistics on that. We know
But
how
I mean,
many.
how do they fit into this?
They're materials. We count
It's
that
part
as
of that.
So
materials.
that is?
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
And we're looking at a downloadable service called Hoopla, which will allow people to download
Mhm.
other videos as well as music as well as audiobooks.
Are you
So that
going
will
to
be
go
the
a
service
slide
that we're
of
trying.
personnel? Are you going to do a slide of personnel?
I will, but I wanted to just check with the city and see if they had a number for me about whether or not the IMRF and FICA. are
That's
gonna
what
be
I was going to
included.
ask about. That was
Yeah.
going down, and I questioned that it would.
Well, the IMRF and FICA, yeah, we'll just say we're going to wait on that number until I
Okay.
know from the city if we have to include that, because that $95,000 is our anticipated, how much that one-time payout, not payouts, but the payment to bring us up to regular cycle will skew a potentially FICA and MRF. So I want to know what the answer is, so then we know how to balance it up in there. And then I can give you numbers and explain why I got to where I got. So those are the 2 slides, just a couple of discussion points, and then you've got the written report, and then the budget. So I don't know if you have any other questions right now, if you just want to shoot some to me in email, or...
Do you anticipate the cafe expenses going up 8,000?
Well, no, actually, we anticipate the expenses going up about 3,000 and revenue to go up 8. So we're anticipating at the end of this year a positive of 5.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
I misread that, yeah.
So it's going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eleanor's got some really great ideas she's been implementing, and some different type of snack foods, and yeah, there are good things happening at the cafe.
Other questions from the board from this little paper? You'll get something more concrete next month.
Yeah.
I appreciate how it's been put together, actually. It's nice, concise, clear, laid out in a very easy to follow fashion. So,
I agree.
nice work.
Pardon? I don't know.
Jeff?
No, I'll ask later. No big-
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, then I will turn this off.
I don't want to paint a gloom and doom, but I think we've got some tough decisions to make in the next 2 or 3 years. Anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the action items. We have board minutes of February 13th, bills for February 9, bills for February 15th, payroll for February 16, bills for February 22, payroll for March 2, bills for March 9, and bills for March
Part 1 and Part 2.
Part 2.
Part 1 and Part 2.
Move
Okay.
approval of the consent agenda.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Aye, thank you. Okay, we're moving to the circulation and interlibrary loan policy, having to do with people being able to be put on a plan, and we wouldn't penalize them for that being in that plan. It's basically what changed from this last time. So do we have any questions? Do I have a motion to
Without
approve?
belaboring it, though, you've added another little rider in there about being able to get a library card. Is that part of it?
That was the piece we missed last month.
Yeah, right.
The piece about renewing, that if somebody's on a payment plan and their card expires, that we'll make an allowance.
But we can still approve this tonight, just, we don't have to, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll move to approve that.
Okay.
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. And acceptance of the Henneman, the city has not gone with, let's start there. The city is not going with what we originally thought, so we're going to have to do something before the hot weather, but it may be not will happen in the hot weather. So we're asking for an approval to go out to Henneman, which I can't say, is this a no bid contract or was this a bid?
The city went out for RFP for evaluation and for construction, engineering, and administration services. They chose Henneman.
Yeah,
You, the
okay.
board, also chose Henneman for the city's, based on the city's research process and RFP process when we did the boilers. So using that same RFP that the city did
That's
in their
what
whole
it is, okay.
process, this is also underneath a certain price point at which you would have to go out for your own. So you're allowed to use their process under the city's umbrella as a home rule. So they will, Henneman will, for us, RFP the engineering services and the work. So they're going to write an RFP for us to see who are the architects and construction people who will do the work for us. That's part of what we're paying them for.
The city will.
Henneman
Henneman will.
That's what
Henneman
we're
will.
paying
Yeah,
Henneman
that's
for.
what I meant.
To do the design and then
Yeah.
to oversee the project itself, to be the project managers.
So do you understand what this motion is about?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Incidentally, just as an aside, Clark Lindsay discovered it needed a new chiller. So we're getting a chiller
getting that
built on
too.
our roof. It's very interesting. I almost burst out laughing out loud when that was announced at our resident council meeting this morning. Anyway, thought you might enjoy hearing that.
How did you get to it twice? Oh, no, you pay your taxes through. Okay, the next resolution is for the replacement of Phase 1 and 2 of the front porch. Any questions?
I just want to make a note that the word replacement is replacement in the title of this. So I don't know if that needs to
Oh, yes.
be adjusted in its final form.
Oh, good catch, boy.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Nice.
I don't know why, it was just staring me right in the face when I looked at it. I was like,
That's a
replacement.
strange thing to do.
I know,
You're
right?
right.
Yeah, replacement.
Any other questions about this? Do I have a motion to pass this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I thank you on that one. Okay, the next resolution is to, the Weber Building needs some work. With the idea that as we look down the road, I hope we eliminate the Weber Building, so I think we've got to be conservative in what we spend on it.
Yeah.
But this is some things that need to be addressed pretty shortly. Do we have a cost figure here?
Yes, they actually sent that a couple of days ago, no, yesterday. And the final cost figure is $8,861.33.
33 cents?
Yes.
Very
Is
specific.
this like is this recurring a cost
No.
or no?
No,
It's-
this is for the installation.
So that's not their cost. That's what they estimate, that when they go out to bid and do an
That's
RFP,
right.
or whatever the process is for
It'll
that amount
be-
of money.
yeah.
That's
So
what
the
they think it will
mechanical
cost.
work cost estimate that Penniman forwarded to us.
And Kathy had looked at this issue a couple of years back, and that is right within the range of what you had approved in concept a couple of years back to replace it. And then there were some pauses because we didn't have tenants, and now we have potential tenants.
Any other questions? If not, do I have a motion for resolution 2018-04?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, the last resolution is the extension of our janitorial services. I have some questions. Does the company that we presently have, they want to bid, obviously, for the next opportunity to do this. Do they bring the supplies, or do we have to pay for those on the top of this? Cleaning supplies.
I would have to look, Chris, I know we buy the toilet paper. I would have to look at the full agreement. Can I get back with you later? I don't have it.
I don't have the agreement with me. I mean, they buy the supplies as part of their contract. But I mean, depending on if they're special, they get lots of special projects, like the chair cleaning. So occasionally, they have to purchase special products to take care of special things.
Outside the scope of the regular
Yeah,
work.
so there's a
Okay.
scope of work and what they require for that, but, you know.
I don't remember-
I receive requests pretty regularly for special projects.
Does that result in extra billing?
Yes,
Yes.
when we ask for special projects, it's like, let me say $3 a chair, $2.50 a chair, or something like that.
Which is budgeted in our repair budget.
I don't remember the contract as such, and this is just the amendment to this. They do clean daily, right, every night. What happens when there's an emergency? Let's say we have
We call.
sick
Yeah, we
people,
do, and we call.
and that is an
Text.
additional
James
fee.
is usually available all the time, and I've texted him at all hours of the day.
And they can come during the daytime, okay.
They're very responsive.
So when someone poops all over the stall in the men's restroom and then smears it all over the toilet seat and the walls, which happens a couple, 3 times a year, we shut the bathroom door, we clear it off limits, and we text them, and they come and they clean it all up.
How do you determine that? Do you have somebody from your staff, no, I'm serious, do you have somebody from the staff that routinely checks the bathrooms?
Usually a patron will come and say, there's a mess in the men's room, or there's a mess in the ladies' room, and then we go look and see. And sometimes it's just someone didn't flush, someone's hair in the sink clogged it up, and sometimes it's something like that, that someone took care to leave for us. Public place, these things happen. So it comes to us a couple different ways.
Okay, the reason I say that is after knowing it was on our budget, I walked around and the bathrooms were in pretty bad shape that day, that's once. I don't know whether that's, some days of the week we do more cleaning than other days, but like the urinals were streaked, and I'm sure they just hadn't scrubbed them that night, or the urinals, or the 2 stools weren't flush, period. And that's why I say, is there some way, because we can't let this happen very often. I mean, I guess I think that there needs to be somebody on staff, or everybody on staff is alert to this, and when they do the staff use the ones that are down here?
They use all
Primarily?
the bathrooms.
They use all, okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's the responsibility of everybody probably to keep this in tip-top shape. I mean, bathrooms are critical.
Well, so the library is,
Yep, they use.
we have a facilities forum, like we have an IT forum, where staff members post, and we have a supplies forum. So staff in those areas, if there's any need, supplies, IT requests, or facilities requests, staff are strongly urged
Okay.
and are very good about posting items to the facilities forum. Everything from light bulbs are out, somebody spilled a cup of coffee on the carpet, the bathrooms are clogged, and I get alerts to my email on my phone when those alerts happen. And so I assess them, and if it's something that needs to be taken care of immediately, I text
Okay.
or email James right away. And we've had a couple instances like that on the weekend where we had a big accident in the children's department on a Saturday afternoon, and it needed to be taken care of right away. So James came, I think, within half an hour with supplies.
Okay.
It's because often these accidents and immediate action items require special tools and special cleaning supplies. So, you know, your Windex or your sanitary wipes aren't going to do the job. So he comes. So anyways, they're very responsive, and that happens all the time.
Jeff?
Yes?
So, I'm not a trained professional social worker or whatever, but in my experience at school, I realized, or I learned that when that happens, what you said, that's a very serious thing because it correlates highly with molestation, at least in children. And that it's sort of like the final thing that you can do to say, I need some help, because it's such a human, it's not a thing that people do on a regular basis. So it appears like it's kind of, a thing that people, but it is, yeah, I mean, and maybe that's not always the case, but if you ever can identify, especially if kids and stuff, it's important, it's not a vandalism thing, it's not a very common vandalism thing, because people have to go to some lengths to do that kind of stuff. Sorry, I learned that. Now all of a sudden, whenever we see it, we have protocols for trying to identify who did it, and not to discipline them, but to find out what's going on.
We are also interested in who would have done such a thing, and we do have cameras outside in the lobby.
Yeah.
But unless you know
When?
Oh, it's very
who
hard,
walked in the
Yeah,
bathroom
and
and knew
which
it was
stall,
clean,
yeah.
and then,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's hard to triangulate.
Yeah.
I worked at a library once where people were doing that and smearing stuff on ceilings and whatnot. And then we did more often walk-arounds when there was this pattern of behavior for a short period of time. Staff increased their presence in the area, and the behavior stopped. So we try to be responsive too, because there's something behind that behavior, obviously.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I hate it that we've taken so much time, but it just was things that we've never talked about on this board, I don't think, before. So it was needed to be done. Okay, the organization that's presently doing, and we think would put in a bid again, I think it's a little on the high side, but you've answered that they're 24 hours on call and some of those things, and I think those cost a little more to do. So do I have a motion to approve Resolution 9.5?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. I don't think we've got anything for discussion questions. Does anybody think of anything that needs to be? If not, we have the Friends report. Anna, is there?
Yes, the Friends met, excuse me, Wednesday, March 7th, and part of what I was going to say has already been reported. Let me start by saying that the next book sale will be April 5th through the 9th, so please mark your calendars. As Celeste mentioned, the proceeds from that sale, after much discussion, very interesting discussion actually, will go to purchase of the furniture. And after further lengthy discussion, the accumulation of funds in the Library Friends group budget of almost $27,000 will also go for furniture. It was really a very interesting meeting, more interesting than many because there was a lot of discussion. There was also a lot of discussion about plantings around the building. And there is a group that is very active in that, and they're itching, literally, to get to work. The rest of the meeting, I don't think really.
Do you feel that we have, I think we're all thinking on the same line that we're not going to be doing major development of that lot this summer.
That is correct. That was
Okay.
discussed at great length. And something is going to be planted there that will lend itself to being torn up
Okay.
for the roadway that has to be put in
Yeah.
and not cost a lot.
Yeah, okay.
There's a lot of discussion about that.
Because I know there are people getting antsy, and I think it's got to mature before we can get antsy.
Yeah.
Maybe you could
Well,
plant, maybe you could plant things there that could be, later on, people could buy them and transport them to their house, like
Yeah.
a donation.
And you'll
Plant
still
little trees
transplant
or
well.
something.
Well, maybe the board is not aware of the plans for when Green Street is closed.
I
Do
think
we know about that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's part of the reason
Yeah,
why
yeah.
that little
Yeah.
bit of land, we don't want to do anything very permanent. We don't want to even talk about it.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, good. Okay, foundation, as we say, we have a meeting tomorrow, and I think that the foundation, I thought Ruth and I didn't have time to talk before this, but I thought we communicated and got it across, and they were willing. That was what I wanted, and you were willing with that. Otherwise, I don't think there's anything from the foundation. Do you think there's? I would say foundation is feeling good about their last collection, but not posh, so we're okay.
If I could say one small thing?
Yeah.
They are looking at a second mailing, though. They are being proactive and looking at a second mailing. I received a draft letter today from a small group of people who are looking at reaching out again to whether people donated or not. They've got some criteria they've looked at, so they're being proactive about doing some more fundraising for the forge.
Jeff, Heartland?
Yeah, we've had another meeting at the end of last month, and there's another one coming up in a couple of weeks, a major meeting, and the committee meetings seem to have disappeared, because now that they have money, they're hiring people, and it's sort of, and they are waiting for their money still, just like everyone else is. They feel that it's more of a sure thing, and that, the Secretary of State already has it, but for some reason, it hasn't come through yet. Other than that, everything's pretty normal. Their next meeting's going to be in Decatur. They're going to try and move their main meetings around, and they will have one at Champaign. I'm not sure when, but I'll let you know, and then you can come out there and be on camera with, but they have the director and people come to that location rather than always being down in southern Illinois. So-
But you do it by telephone,
Well, no, it's a video conference.
video conference,
Yeah.
okay. Administrative report. Celeste? Oh, you have a question?
No, I had a question about Celeste's report.
Great.
Oh.
Just as a note, a number of people have been calling the state library to say, hi, how about our check we should have received last fiscal year, let alone this check? And the state library has started to receive some of the money they were promised for fiscal 17, and has started distributing, for example, the state aid equalization grants to libraries that are smaller and get some extra bonus money. So there's a couple different queues that they've got it in, and some libraries are getting them in an alphabetical kind of way. So for example, Champaign got their money.
Urbana is at the bottom of the list.
But I was assured by someone at the state library, we
Let's
should
change
expect
our
the
name.
fiscal 17 money to come in during fiscal 18,
Is that what you
but
said?
not to hold our breath for fiscal 18 money coming in fiscal 18. So we'll take fiscal 17. We'll take it.
Anything else?
That was the main thing that we expected.
You see, yeah, Barb.
Yeah, I noted the staff day, which sounds great. I wanted to know if there were any conclusions about the opioid action plan and whether people are interested in getting trained or what's going to happen.
We're soliciting names from staff, and I think we've got 5 or 6 already of people who are interested. We gave
Okay.
people, I think, through the 15th. Give
Okay.
them some time to think about it, and then we'll arrange a training date, and we can always arrange a second training date if more people want to get trained.
It just interests me a lot. I saw an article from Peoria that the Peoria Public Library is doing this, and I mean, there's been a lot of national news about it, and I just continue to marvel at how libraries and librarians take on so much of the social ills in this country. I sometimes wonder how much more can we take on, but kudos to you. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying, wow.
If anyone of you would like to be trained, the Champaign County Health Department got a grant because one way to make sure people live is to get Narcan out in the community and make sure people are trained to implement it. So their job is to train people, whether you're an addict yourself, whether you're the friends or family of an addict, someone working in a place where addicts might be, so that if someone has an overdose, you can assist if you are so inclined. So it's for people who are interested in being trained. So one of our staff members said to me very clearly, I don't expect to see this here at the library in the place where I work, but I take the bus a lot and some people look like they're not doing so well. So in my private life, this will help me feel more confident that if this thing comes up, I can act if I want to, or if I am in a, if I choose to.
Wow.
So you say you've taken the training?
I have not. I'm waiting to do it with staff. So we'll do it as a group. And again, no one is being mandated. This is completely voluntary. Just like we have the AED machine on the wall by the circulation desk. If someone looks like they're in a heart failure, staff are able, or patrons are able to use that, but no one is required to do that. So we see this along those lines. And there's the Good Samaritan law so that staff cannot be, it's not going to be litigious towards them if something doesn't go well or if someone is not happy about being brought back.
That's all we need.
I hope we don't ever have to talk about being trained with guns.
Let's hope. One thing in Celeste's report was Anka has been accepted for 2 major programs as far as I'm concerned. I talked to her. She's been a part of both of these groups for some time. One of them is as a result of the grant that she's working with. And so this makes a lot of sense. So congratulations to
Yes,
you.
congratulations.
I look forward to hearing about it when you get back.
Can I ask a question? I didn't realize that, but are guns in libraries an issue nationally? Well, no, I mean,
Not yet, but it's been suggested that librarians are the ideal people in K through 12 to get training with guns.
Oh, in school.
Yeah, because teachers, this has been in the last week or so, because teachers are deemed to be just teachers. And what happens a lot of times in schools, the kids assemble in a library if there's an active shooter. because it's usually a big area. And so the question that our president has said, well, what about librarians? Why couldn't they be trained? And honestly, most librarians I know would not want to take that role. And I think we're going to hear from ALA on it. I think the School Library Association is going to make a statement. Not that it would matter if it becomes federal law, but it probably would be. You'd have to volunteer. You wouldn't be forced to.
Well, just addressing that, you know, there are school shootings, so we have to put guns in schools, and there are maybe public buildings where they're you know, but
Right.
there haven't been any shootings or mass shootings in libraries yet.
Oh, don't even say it.
I know, let's not, but
There was one, but it does not compare in scope to the things happening in schools.
But in terms of congregation and where people get together,
Yes.
this would be certainly.
yes.
Yeah.
Which is why we've had the staff training on run high fight and other things, so we know how to get people out of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
building. To your point.
May I please have your attention? The Urbana Free Library will close in 30 minutes. Patrons who wish to apply for or renew library cards to come to the circulation desk in the next 15 minutes.
Okay, the items under 13 are basically, the Facilities Committee is not a functional committee as such. It was appointed by me, and we're not going to have that committee. If it's a routine committee, they have to set their dates, like the nominating committee and all this, and if you have ad hoc, we don't have to. So we're going to disband with the Facilities Committee, and our member isn't here tonight, and I have not called him, so that's the answer if he calls. The Campus Plan and Committee, you want to share with us what your thoughts are in order to get started?
So back in 2013, before I started, there, maybe even 2012 to 2013, the former director and a bunch of people at the city and one of the architects that helped design this building got together and designed a campus plan looking at the block. And then different things happened, priorities were different. We still have the documents that show the work they did over a period of months with city planners and city employees and someone from the foundation board and a board member, I believe. And
I think
so what we want to do is take a look at the document, which is super long, and it does things like say, if the library wanted to expand, what is an option? One option is to go west because the library is built to go west. What would the library want to go south? It looks at some expansion options. It also talks about pieces of property the library could purchase. Well, in part, the library has purchased or been gifted with the corner lot, so we could look at that property and what happens on it differently because it is owned by the library. Also, the library owns property across the street, the Weber building, so, and then the parking lot behind that. So I thought this would be a good time, now that the library does own these properties, and while the city is visioning at Lincoln Square and MCOR is coming through, this would be a good time for maybe a board member and then someone from the city and someone from the foundation board that has been purchasing the land for us, and maybe a community member to come together. I can do some quick updates on the document for the factual pieces and then look at the block and across the street and think about options for where the library might like to go, and then bring a plan forward to you. And it was going to go to the foundation board, the city council, and then the library board to discuss and approve as a plan.
So and I know we did have one or two members even on that committee. Do you want people to share with me if you're interested? Is that time enough?
I think that would be great.
Okay.
So between now and the next, maybe the next meeting or the following meeting after that.
Indicate, and so it would be an ad hoc committee, so we don't get into this.
Any
have
committee
to-
has to go through the Open Meetings Act.
Any committee? I thought ad hoc was not.
No, all committees,
All committees.
The word committee.
yes.
Okay, let me know if you're interested in working on this. And it's not necessarily a onus kind of job, but it just needs to be looked at and reviewed and say, oh, we're still good with that. And so if you're interested in that. The other item
And it fits in with the strategic plan,
Yes.
long range, right? I mean, you want to,
We'll pace those things out.
yeah, okay.
But again, I think the strategic plan would benefit from having a committee that has
Yeah,
reviewed
Yeah, exactly.
prior
This
to.
would lead right into that.
Yeah. The other thing I'd like to see a show of hands of how many of you have ever attended Fairy Tale Ball, not just this year, but any year.
Out of town every single one. There's no exception.
I'm ashamed.
It corresponds with a meeting that I always have in Chicago. It's like 1 year.
Why don't you cancel your meeting next time? You all need to attend. Oh, a national meeting. Okay, you can't call that one. You all need to attend Fairy Tale Ball and see. First of all, these little infants are in dress. I mean, they costume everybody, and the dogs, I guess, occasionally are dressed. And supposedly we had a record number this year. I felt it was lower because it was cold out, but it was cold last year too. So I don't know, but Celeste reports a good number. But it is, and Fred and his wife pay for this. And I think that if you get a chance, thank Fred. I have, but he needs the support. It's very worthwhile, and I hope that my shaming you into it, you will go out next year. Is there any unfinished business? See no further business before the board. I declare us adjourned.